So, a best perks video. If you're watching this because you wanted the best perks for the spear, then you probably don't know what's going on, but I haven't recorded one of these in months, and yeah, it's probably because I covered almost all the weapons, so link to the playlist down below. But we're talking about the vacuum tube spear. It brought me out of unofficial retirement. Yeah, this weapon is way better than you might have ever thought. I have covered most of the vacuum tube weapons on my channel, and of course the notable favorites are like the vacuum tube bow and the AR, and the pistol's super strong, the shotgun's really good, the chain lightning really makes these weapons way better than they normally would be. I ran the math on the vacuum tube spear, and with the perks that we're running, we'll talk about them later, it is honestly not the highest ranked melee I've ever looked at. I'm not even trying to convince you guys this is some new S tier weapon that's been lurking, but it is very strong, quite usable in the 160s. I have used this weapon on stream many times for my 164 player missions, and okay, 1v1 versus a 250 power level smasher, not gonna be doing the most damage on that thing, but the crowd clearing is where it's at. As you've been seeing in this gameplay, I mostly saw basic, like, smaller grouped zombies in here. I wish I would have gotten some better footage. I might get some better ones if I go back through the process of getting gameplay, but it is, as you can probably tell, really good at hitting a single enemy and almost eliminating everything with one shot, and that is extremely important, because if the DPS isn't that impressive, what makes up for it is the chain lightning one-shotting multiple enemies. You can hit one target and kill 7 zombies. That is how strong the chain lightning can be. In encampments, this weapon is invaluable. Obviously, it's locked to nature as a vacuum tube weapon. That's part of its shtick, so it's probably something you're only going to want to use in the water missions. And similar to the vacuum tube axe video, which I know most of you haven't seen because it's the least popular best perks on my channel, it is really good in not healing death burst missions. You want that chain lightning to actually stick. If they are healing each other constantly, it makes it really tough. The chain lightning weapons have trouble with that because healing death bursts, of course, they're healing themselves. You typically want to focus on one enemy at a time, but if you have the perfect combo, the perfect trio, smoke screen encouraging you to use melee, water encouraging you to use nature, and no healing death bursts, vacuum tube spear is a great pick. So it is definitely something I want you to consider. So the perks for this thing are going to be very standard. That's why I'm showing them so early in the video. Double attack speed is kind of where it's at. We've talked about this a lot on the channel, and this video, at least for the perks section, is going to be a lot more about the actual loadout rather than the weapon itself. Obviously, you're stuck to nature. You can't really change that, but double attack speed is the best because of Luna. If you don't want to use Luna, you can run double crit damage on this. You can do a totally rocking out build. I'm not certain if I'd recommend that. Your attack speed would be pretty slow on that, going down to like 0.8 per second. It's going to be super bad. You know, totally rocking out can make up for that, but it might not be active 100% of the time. So while I can't recommend double crit damage, you can do crit damage, but you won't have an attack speed perk. I really believe double attack speed is the only logical way to go here, and then just take advantage of how broken Luna is. Damage is also recommended here. Armor, durability, life leech movement, all of this is not really going to help you at all. The heavy attack is nothing that we're concerned about in this build. It's one of those things where the time it takes you to activate the heavy attack ability is so long that the amount of damage you would have done if you would have just kept attacking normally is more than it would have done if you would have heavy attacked. So damage perk here is just easy pickings. And the 6th perk is where things change. So the lightning strike is obviously what I'm recommending. That crowd clearing is amazing. However, honestly, affliction, super good, super strong. And if you want to run that, damage to afflicted is the way to go. Now, there might be better weapons for this option here. I don't know if you should run vacuum tube spear with affliction. I feel like you got better options. I'm kind of focusing on the tube spear as one of the few weapons that has chain lightning, and that gives it a really nice niche. But if you have an affliction copy and you want to just go for it, maybe you're saving up for a core perk, or you don't want to spend it on this weapon but you still want to give it a try, affliction is actually okay. And I actually consider affliction to be a decent crowd clearing 6th perk because you can just hit every enemy once, just swing through a crowd. Each swing can hit multiple enemies, so you can just attack all of them very easily, and affliction will chip away while you move on to other targets. And of course, extra damage to affliction will give you a 45% bonus to any of the enemies that you have to return to. Another thing worth noting with the vacuum tube weapons is that the damage to stun, stagger, and frozen is actually kind of considerable because these weapons can stun enemies. It's not super reliable. I wouldn't recommend a whole 5th perk based around that, but it's an option if you want to go for it. But I highly recommend the damage to miss monsters and bosses, as that's super consistent. If you're not going to be running affliction, damage to miss monsters, those are the enemies that are going to need that extra damage. We're already essentially one-shotting every other zombie type up to Huskies. So I don't think it's super necessary. And then, of course, we also have the 44% damage against water elemental enemies. That one's tricky to suggest because a lot of your damage is coming from Luna. This weapon is doing, you know, tens of thousands of damage per hit. It's actually pretty decent as far as melees go. A lot of the swords in the game have lower damage, higher attack speed. This weapon is a lot more balanced, and that's why the chain lightning is so effective. But that 44% damage might not be ideal because, like I said, that is not where your damage is coming from. It's really the attack speed that is the winner here. So since I've talked about this for so long, let's get into the loadout I'm using. I did record my gameplay with a 144 Paleo Luna, so if this weapon looks, you know, slightly better than other melees on my channel, that's why. But the key thing here is, of course, Blast in the Past. That extra damage from Luna is monstrous. That's why we got the double attack speed. Saurian Hide just to keep us healthy, and then, of course, Saurian Vigor kind of sucks. She is really not great, but you can see that we don't really have better options. We're not using Southie because there's nothing in this loadout that's demanding any energy usage. Saurian Fight, we're not using abilities. Obviously, we're not using a ranged weapon, so Saurian Instinct is kind of the last option besides Vigor, and again, we're not using abilities. So as terrible as Vigor is in this current version of the game, it's unfortunately just our best option, so that's what I went with. Coconuts, of course, keeps us healthy, gives us extra damage. It's a massive win. I have talked about coconuts a lot on this channel. It has been a while since I have reviewed the coconuts versus survivalist argument, and it seems a lot of people on my channel have forgotten. Survivalist is going to give you like 10, maybe 20,000 per tick. If you kill one enemy, you'll maybe get 60,000 health, and it does not stack. Every kill only extends the timer. They do not stack together, so it is absolutely insufficient to keep you alive in the middle of a fight in the 160s. That is where I test my builds. At least for the gameplay, I do 140s, but I get my opinion of these weapons in the 164 players with a full party. So I take these weapons to the highest end of the game, and I try to see if it'll actually hold up. And Coconuts is far better than Survivalist. You get about 30% of your health instantly, and then it heals over 30 seconds at the rate of faster than 2 campfires, I believe. So it's very good. It's highly, highly recommended. And when you're using a melee, it could be nice to have like a rocket launcher secondary, but it could be a thing in the future that coconuts will work in the utility slot, so that's not even a big deal anymore. As for the other perks, well, there aren't really a lot of options when it comes to spears. There are a couple, and I don't even remember what they are because they're really, really bad. Every time you look into them, it's just disappointing. Yeah. So we're not honestly going to use any of them. Assassination is fine. It's kind of whatever. It just gives you extra melee damage in general, which is a nice perk. Each attack just sort of gives you more damage. It's nice to have. And Battle Beat might be a surprising pick, but remember that attack speed is where we're getting so much of our damage output, so swinging quicker is really, really nice. And killing 10 enemies in 9 seconds is pretty easy considering that Chain Lightning does what it does. So all around, this build keeps you going, and it is super strong. So yeah, Vacuum Tube Spear. I said I'd make this video, and I'm making it now. I'm glad to cover it. I hope some of you guys actually try it out because I really recommend this weapon. If you guys want to support the channel, you know, these videos take a lot of work. Normally I'd show my creator code here, but I support Archer, so here, I'll just enable this. There you go, code Mystic to check out. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
And then